Way back in the days of hunter-gatherers, life was very, very different for humans. Now, a lot of people don't think it's really relevant or worthwhile or makes sense to talk about what life was like back in the days of hunter-gatherers. But the truth is that we spent 95% of our time as humans in that environment. And in that environment, that ancient hunter-gatherer environment, that's when all our mind-body systems were calibrated. That's when our language was calibrated. That's when our thought process was calibrated. That's when how we think about the world, how we think about ourselves, how we think about our relationships to other people in the world, that's when all of these things were calibrated. And so it is very, very critical to understand our mind-body system parameters, our structures, our strategies in light of a hunter-gatherer system, because life is so much different today, and not understanding the difference can cause a lot of problems. Back in the day, there was massive constraints on life. There was massive external pressure always being applied. In order to get food, you had to go out and hunt something. You had to go out and kill something, something that definitely didn't want to be killed. So getting food was very, very dangerous. Getting food was very, very important. You couldn't get away with calling in sick for work. You couldn't just kind of sleep in late and decide to get up when you felt like it. You couldn't get away with just kind of laying back and let somebody else do all the work. You had to continuously push yourself forward out into the world. You had to continuously assert yourself into the world to get your needs met. But not only that, there was a whole nother level of pressure. And that was that we lived in these extremely tight hierarchies. And how much of a producer you were determined where you were in the hierarchy. Because we killed these big animals and then we shared the meat with everybody. Whoever was the most responsible for all of those calories got the most admiration and respect from everybody else. So this was a never-ending competition. Not only did you have to assert yourself into the world to achieve what you wanted, but you had to assert yourself into the world in a massively competitive environment. So you couldn't afford at all to lay back and relax and play and just sit in the back of the car and just wait for other people to do the work. You always had to push yourself into the world as much as you possibly could, because only if you got into the top 20% of society did you have sexual access. So this was a very, very different environment than today. Another difference was that if you were good as a producer, if you were a good hunter, that translated into massive social respect. That translated into massive social popularity. But today it's different. You could be a killer in the boardroom, but absolutely clueless in social situations. You could be the best day trader in the world and make hundreds of thousands of dollars per week, but be absolutely clueless how to talk to people in a social situations. Back then, everything was tied together. But today, everything is separate. Every desire you have is a separate variable, which means you have to be extremely proactive if you want to be financially successful. There's no external constraints pressuring you, reminding you to stay on your path. You have to be extremely proactive to become socially successful. You have to be extremely proactive to be successful and healthy and have a decent body and not be supremely overweight like a lot of people are today. So back then, everything was tied together. Back then, nobody needed to be proactive. Nobody needed to be reminded what to do. It was all done for you. You just showed up and the world compelled you to be as proactive as you could, to be as successful as you could, to be the best hunter you could be, to become the best storyteller you could be. But today, these are all different variables. So here we are today with all of these different desires. But we will only achieve these desires if we're proactive towards each and every one of them, and we remind ourselves from an internal standpoint, not an externally constrained standpoint, but an internal standpoint to go after these desires. Now, all of these desires can fall on kind of a spectrum, and they're highly correlated to both the size of the desire and the amount of agency we feel when getting the desire. Desires that are relatively simple to achieve, we feel a strong sense of agency. If I do XYZ, I will get ABC. There's no doubt in my mind. These are things like doing our daily job, the stuff we do at work, cooking, cleaning, buying stuff, buying cars, whatever, buying houses, renting stuff, doing things that we do on a daily basis. Then on the other side of the spectrum, these are much, much, much bigger desires, and we don't feel nearly the sense of agency. These are things like becoming a multimillionaire, or starting a business, or having a wonderful relationship with a wonderful person, if you don't already have one. These kind of live in the land of, I wish that would happen to me someday, because we don't feel a sense of agency. We don't feel a sense of agency that says, if I do XYZ, I know I will get ABC. And this comes up with a very, very diabolical obstacle to success for many, many people. When we think about the easy things, when we think about the things that we have agency, it's easy to imagine getting what we want. If I do XYZ, I'll get ABC. But over here on the wish side, when we don't feel a lot of agency, we convince ourselves that if I did do XYZ, I probably could get ABC. I just don't want to. But that keeps us from actually trying, because the deeper fear that lives in our subconscious that most people will never acknowledge consciously is that what happens if I try to get these big dreams and I fail miserably? Then what? Then what do I think about? What can I dream about? I can no longer dream about a better future if I try to get these big desires and I fail miserably. So instead of facing that potential outcome, instead of actually trying, we convince ourselves, well, I could get that if I wanted to, but I just really don't want to right now. And we come up with all these reasons, all these self-delusional cope reasons that keep us stuck, because given the two options, most people would rather stay how we are right now and protect our sense of self, protect our ego integrity, and still have the ability to dream about one day somehow by magic having this fantastic thing coming true, other than trying and failing and then having our sense of self shattered and having nothing to dream about. So the trick is, how do you solve this problem? How do you solve this problem of being in this delusional state of cope where you convince yourself, I could get this if I wanted to, I just don't want to? How do you get rid of that belief and slowly move towards these big desires, so you slowly build stronger and stronger agency, and you start to develop the belief over time that, yes, if I do XYZ, I will get ABC. And ABC becomes bigger and bigger and bigger over time. Luckily, there are some very proven strategies that will allow you to do this, to take these small things that you can achieve, that you feel a strong sense of agency. If I do XYZ, I know I will get ABC, and slowly slide these from the small, easy things to these big lifetime achievement things over on this side. And that's what we'll talk about in the next video.